Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us. I'm Blake Burman, fresh off of our Hill Nation Summit. Welcome to a special edition here of The Hill. Defending the Homeland. What the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem told me today about the future of farm raids and what she views as the biggest threats across our nation.
We have removed, since President Trump has been in office, over 600 individuals that are on the known or suspected terrorist list. Do we still have sleeper cells in this country? Absolutely.
Baggage, what the secretary said about the future of our air travel. As for the president of the United States, it was a roller coaster day as it relates to the Federal Reserve.
Completely ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell.
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud.
Peter Navarro reveals to me what Jay Powell told the president in his job interview back in the first term. You'll hear that story. Also tonight, don't be duped. That is the message from Trump to Republicans on the Epstein files. But a key Republican introducing new legislation to release the files joins us live. Plus, the future of the Democratic Party. This message from activist David Hogg today at the summit.
What's one thing you're hopeful for?
The fact that I'm going to outlive a lot of the people who are against me. I mean, it's just the truth.
How about that? But first tonight, here from the Hill, Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. As you see there, I sat down with Secretary Noem for about 20 minutes this morning at the Hill Nation Summit here in D.C., discussing the future of one of the government's most critical departments. We're going to show you this here in two parts. Like I mentioned, we talked for 20 minutes or so. In a moment, the one thing that could impact your next trip to the airport. But we started off with immigration and how the administration plans to handle raids involving farm workers. Watch.
We've been seeing the immigration raids play out. There was the scene, for example, last week, which we covered live out in California. There's been a question, especially among conservatives, about what needs to happen at farms, especially as it relates to undocumented workers. There's some within your party who say every undocumented worker, every illegal immigrant needs to go, and anything short of that is quote unquote amnesty. Help me work through the policy here, because right now there's an estimated 320,000 undocumented immigrants working on American farms. Is it the position of the Trump administration that every single one of the 320,000, give or take, should be deported?
Well, the president has been very clear from the beginning that we are going to uphold the law and follow the law. There aren't going to be any safe places where we'll tell criminals you can go here and be completely safe. We're going to make sure we're going after those who perpetuate violence and trafficking and drug trafficking and go get them and remove them from this country. So this facility in California was a marijuana grow facility, and we had built a large case and an investigation on who was there and what they were doing. And if you remember, we've brought in over 360, I believe, criminals that we have brought into detainment. Many of them there had charges against them that were pending or they were convicted of murder, of rape and trafficking, and 14 different children were there as well. 9 or 10 of them were unaccompanied, which means they were working at this facility without a known parent or relative there with them. And we also had working at that facility people who were charged and convicted of child trafficking and human trafficking and sex trafficking. So we will go places that we know there are known criminals where we've built a case to go get those individuals and help protect and find our kids.
So known criminals and violent criminals, as I've just heard you say it. But among those, again, roughly 320,000 who are not known criminals, who are not violent criminals and are undocumented and working at farms, is the expectation, Secretary, that those individuals as well will be deported?
Oh, well, there will never be amnesty under President Trump. We are putting our priorities in place where he promised the American people when he ran for office that he would make America safer, that he would go after criminals. So that's what we're targeting right though, is those individuals who have criminal records or charges against them. I've gone to probably 10 different countries where most of these individuals came from and negotiated with their countries security agreements. They give us more background information on who they sent to us. So Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras, We're headed to Ecuador and Argentina. They share with us the criminal backgrounds that they have on the individuals that they know are in our country that will help us remove them even quicker. So that's our priority, is to do that, remove those individuals, those with final removal orders, so that we have an opportunity to do exactly what the president said.
Okay.
I would encourage everybody, though, in this, if people are here in this country illegally, go home. I mean, the law is the law, and we are upholding the law. And the president is very clear that he doesn't believe that the law should apply to some people and not to others, and that there should be consequences for some people and not for others. They have the opportunity right now to self-deport. We will buy their plane ticket. When they land, they will be able to get $1,000 in their hand to care for their families, and they get the chance to come back. And so that's what I think is so remarkable, is that we will let them come back the right way, and we're facilitating that today. So every individual that's here in this country that's concerned, or every farmer out there that has somebody that's working for them that's concerned, work with getting them home, and so they can come back and get the right way.
At the end of, you are, as you very well know, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And I'll do a story, whatever the issue is, probably once a week. And this quote from the former FBI Director, Christopher Wray, sticks out to me. He said, Secretary, in April of 2024, he testified up on Capitol Hill. He said, "Our most immediate concern has been that individuals or small groups will draw twisted inspiration from events in the Middle East to carry out attacks at home. But now increasingly concerning is the potential for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, akin to the ISIS-K attack that we saw in Russia." That was Christopher Wray, April last year. From your perch as the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, does that still remain, what he said then, the most immediate concern now?
As far as immediate concern from those who would wish to do us harm from the Middle East, I would say it is one of the top 2 or 3 concerns. I would say that we have removed, since President Trump has been in office, over 600 individuals that are on the known or suspected terrorist list. Do we still have sleeper cells in this country? Absolutely. Are we getting up every single day to find them and get them out of this country? Absolutely. That's one of our very top priorities, is to make sure we're identifying those individuals. And our agencies within the Department of Homeland Security are partnering with the FBI, partnering with the Department of Justice to use resources to get them out as soon as possible. But that threat is very real, because once they got here—
What's the biggest threat, as you view it right now? Because you're in the role right now.
I can't say a biggest threat, because I have so many I deal with every day. We have the threat from terrorists that are in our country today that we need to remove. We also have the crimes that are happening on our streets by those individuals that are murderers and rapists that affect families immediately. You can't ever bring that person back to their family. But I would say our critical infrastructure is extremely vulnerable. One thing that the Department of Homeland Security did not do well under the last administration was to protect our electrical grid. We did not protect people's personal information. You remember these hacking attempts that were successfully done, called Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon. China proved that they can hack into our electrical system and shut it down. They can shut down our water systems. Those are things that CISA, which is one of my agencies, is supposed to be out there hunting down those bad guys and hardening our systems so that they can't do that. I think one of the scariest moments I had during my nomination process was when I got a briefing from CISA, which is the cybersecurity agency of the nation. They said to us, "We don't know how Salt Typhoon happened or how to prevent it in the future." And that's not acceptable. So we have to partner with private industry, with technology companies, those that have knowledge in these areas, and also operate overseas in some of these countries that can give us information that we need in order to harden our systems to protect people's information. We live in a country that isn't very patient when their phone doesn't work or their lights don't come on. So
I'm going to get to TSA in a second.
Yes, that's
Speaking
true.
of,
That's true. But so we need to make sure that this country is stable, not just from not having terrorists here and not having murderers, but also how do we keep the light?
All right, so you heard me there reference TSA. That reports to DHS as well. Now, TSA began in November of 2001, of course, right after September 11th. 5 years later, liquids were banned from all carry-ons. The same year, it also started the policy of taking off your shoes at security. The TSA ended the shoe requirement just last week. If you fly off and, small nuisance, big deal, though. Now, as for TSA, it screens more than 750 million passengers annually. It also screens more than 5.5 million carry-on items every single day. So I ended the interview with the DHS secretary by asking about your and my next trip to the airport.
The other day, you announced, TSA announced, you actually said in the announcement, quote, that basically the shoes off policy at the airports, that we all go to the airport. Everybody's, wow, look at that.
Yeah. The big question I have is, did you all get to leave your shoes off?
So
I want to make sure it's happening at every airport.
Here's the question that I have. Because
I always feel like I have to follow up and say, okay, are they doing it for sure?
Here's how I started my week, Secretary. I woke up, I went about my morning, I went to the local Staples because I had to renew my TSA pre. And I paid my $77.50 to renew my TSA pre. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm guessing a lot of other people have the same question.
Why do I need pre-check?
Do we need pre-check anymore? A, do we need it? B, what's the difference in sort of what does the future at the airports look like?
Well, hopefully the future of an airport, where I'm looking to go, is that you walk in the door with your carry-on suitcase, you walk through a scanner and go right to your flight.
Just like that?
Takes you 1 minute to get there.
How far away are we till that?
I'm working with several different companies with technologies to give us competitive bids on what they actually can do. And you will see us pilot this at a couple of airports before it gets implemented nationwide. But I just want you to know, the day I walked in the door, I started questioning everything TSA does. You still need pre-check because if you want to leave your electronics in your bag and
so that's the only
like that.
Is that the only reason?
There's a few things, but I will tell you, the liquids, I'm questioning. So that may be the next big announcement, is what size your liquids need to be. We're looking at, our scanners. What we have put in place in TSA, a multi-layered screening process that allows us to change some of how we do security and screening, so it still is safe. It is still a process that is protecting people who are traveling on our airlines, but it has to make sense. It has to actually do something to make you safer. I don't think that was questioned under the Biden administration. I kept wondering if we were doing things just to slow people down or what it was, but TSA is working on the technology that we have available to us if we deploy it correctly.
So it's just simply
that you can walk in, if you've got a carry-on bag, you should be able just to walk through their screeners, their scanners, and go right to your flight.
That's how the conversation ended, about half of it, with myself and the DHS Secretary, Kristi Noem. Here with me now, also at the summit today, he was indeed Chris Stirewalt, host of the Hill Sunday Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Hello, my man.
What kind of liquid are you trying to bring on the plane? Why are you pushing her? Like, what do you need? What are you trying to bring on the airplane?
She brought it up, right?
Okay, I don't know.
Look, I think that's
the old Coors party ball. I don't know what you're bringing on.
That one's a political winner.
Oh yeah,
big time political winner, right? On the farm raids, it seems like they're still trying to work through the messaging a little bit, and on the sleeper cells, pretty direct warning there. What'd you take away from that?
What if the administration got what she said it wanted on immigration? What would happen? Economic catastrophe, right? So if everybody did, if every person who was in the United States with illegal, as Democrats would say, lacking the proper documentation, working in the United States, in agriculture, in food service, in hospitality, in landscaping, in all of these service industries that they fill. If everybody today said, I'll take $1,000 in a plane ticket and I'll leave the country, what would happen to the United States economy? Get crushed. We don't have anything. Here's one of the secrets in Washington. We have like 400,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs in the United States. We heard Peter Navarro, you were talking to him today.
Going to hear from him later in the show.
It's a deep tease. Where it's like, we're going to do this. We don't have the workers to do the jobs. And the people who say, yeah, it'll going to drive pay up, and more people are going to come in and do that work, maybe to a certain degree over a period of time. But if what she was saying that she wanted to happen happened, it would be an economic gut shot to the United States.
And part of the reason why the president has sort of been back and forth on this issue as they try to work through it. Chris, see you later in the show.
Oh, we should do that. All right.
Appreciate the DHS Secretary and her time this morning. Still to come tonight here on this special edition of The Hill. Chris mentioned it, my conversation with the senior White House counselor, Peter Navarro.
What Powell has done incredibly and historically is he's the worst Fed chair, I think, in history.
And there was a lot more of that. Navarro reveals why Trump appointed Jerome Powell as Fed chair in the first place. And I asked, who will replace him? We are back in 4 minutes on a very busy day. Stay with us.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. He's dead. He's gone. And all it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats.
All right, President Trump in the Oval Office today doubling down on his new narrative surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files. He says Republicans are getting duped over the story. At today's Hill Nation Summit, the Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna saying that this story is a big deal.
I don't even think it matters if his name comes in the Epstein file. I think people just discount that. But what matters is that he's not releasing it. He's not exposing it. His whole thing was, I'm going to take these folks down. I'm going to take down and show people how corrupt government is, and it's not working for you. And that's why I think this has such resonance on both the left and the right.
So this happens to be one of the rare times where Republican lawmakers are not buying what the president is selling. Republican Thomas Massie praising his colleague Eric Burlison today for co-sponsoring legislation that calls for the release of the Epstein files. The Republicans feel like they're defying their leader. With us now, the aforementioned Congressman Eric Burlison, Republican from Missouri. Thanks for being with us tonight, sir. The president says you're being duped. What say you?
Yeah, I love President Trump. I think he's done an amazing job. Honestly, with all the wins that we've achieved over these last few months, I think they're unprecedented and historic. I think that he's on pace to being on Mount Rushmore. This is not a good moment. And I think that, so I'm open. If the president has information that we do not have, I want to hear it. But I think that the American people right now, they expected these files to be released. And I think, look, we've got how many victims, right? Hundreds of young girls were victimized. And I think the American people and these victims deserve to have some kind of clarity.
I mentioned the bill that you co-sponsored, Democrats, Republicans on it. Here was Mike Johnson today, the House Speaker. He said, we're for transparency. I'm saying the same thing the president is, that, you need to have all the credible information released to the American people to make their decision. It's notable because yesterday he went a lot further than that, Congressman, and today he's trying to align himself. You saw that quote there. I'm saying the same thing the president is. Do you trust that Mike Johnson will give you what you want on this issue?
That's yet to be seen. So we'll see what kind of actions that the speaker takes. But look, this is a moral imperative for many folks, myself included. I am a Republican. I stand with President Trump. I will fight for his agenda. But this is just, I cannot cross my moral boundaries.
So at what point, though, at what point do you say, or not, you know what, I've made my point. If this doesn't go anywhere, we move on? Or do you keep pounding the door here?
Look, I think that the reason why this hurts so much is that it kind of runs to the core of the federal government. And the question at hand is, does this government still belong to the people? Are they still accountable to the people? And when we got so close to finding out the details on just one scandal, look, there's other things that the American people are frustrated and think they're almost blackpilled. They think they're never going to learn about what really happened with JFK, what really happened, with right. UFOs and all these other things.
So you mentioned UFOs, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you're on the show all the time talking about it. What do you think you get first? The answers that you're seeking on UFOs, or the answers that you want on Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know. I felt like we were so close to Epstein. That's why I think that I think that's why it hurts so much. It's just raw and right there. But I certainly want all the information. We're going to continue to pursue both the Epstein list, UFOs, the truth on JFK, and everything else. It's time for this government to stop keeping secrets to the American people.
We'll be covering it. Talking to you soon. Eric Burlison, Republican from Missouri, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Of course. Still much more ahead tonight. On a big day for the Hill and NewsNation, one of the president's top counselors, Peter Navarro, been there since day one, sitting down with me today for 20 minutes and went right after Jay Powell.
He's made 3 major policy blunders in just 6 years.
All right, so if you don't like Powell, the obvious question is, then who? It's how I started my conversation, what Navarro told me on the other side. 6:30 here in Washington. Welcome back to a special edition of The Hill tonight. The Powell pressure. The question from Washington to Wall Street to your 401k if you have one. Is the president going to try to fire the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell? After reports suggested today that could be in the works, the president then offered this caveat.
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next, 8 months or so, and we'll pick somebody that's good.
In a moment, I'm going to show you what Peter Navarro told me about Powell's status and how he got the job, he says, in the first place. But first to our Kelly Meyer with the question of the day over at the White House. Kelly?
Yeah, and how he got the job in the first place, too. Trump appointing him back in 2017, speaking highly of him then, but now a much different tone. And the question here is, will he or won't he? As you mentioned there, the president said it's highly unlikely that he will fire him, but he's leaving that option open. And it comes after he told lawmakers essentially that he asked them what they think of firing Powell. They expressed approval, and he kind of weighed whether or not that could come. And it also comes as he continues to put this pressure, as you mentioned, the pressure campaign on Powell to essentially resign. There's a question of whether can he even do this. House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked that on the Hill today. He said, I don't know. And we also saw Kevin Hassett out here, and he dodged questions on whether or not the president should fire Powell. Blake.
Kevin Hassett, a name to remember. Kelly Meyer, you know her, of course, live on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you. So who does the president want to replace to be the top money man? Well, that's just more than $1 million question. I sat down with Peter Navarro, who's been Trump's senior counselor on trade and manufacturing since day one at today's Hill Nation Summit. He gave me a look behind the curtain of how he says all of this started.
There's a report out of Bloomberg this morning that Kevin Hassett is the early front runner to be the next Fed chair. Do you think that's where it is right now?
Oh, I'm not going there.
So
I love Kevin. He'd do a great job. But let's talk. Let me just explain. I'm not new to the Jay Powell criticism thing. I've been writing about this since the first term. And folks, let me explain. My background is as a macro economist. And what Powell has done incredibly and historically is he's the worst Fed chair, I think, in history. And let me just make the case for you. He's made 3 major policy blunders in just 6 years. And we start with the first term, when President Trump is passing the first tax cut act. And we are in process of tax cuts. We're doing deregulation. We're strategic energy dominance. Oil prices are going down. And we're doing fair trade. And this is like the Trump-nomics thing where we're able to grow much more rapidly than the Obama-Biden new normal kind of era, if you know that language, without creating inflation. And Powell was incapable, just totally incapable of understanding that. And what he did was, too early, Powell raised rates during that time. And the Federal Reserve subsequently would issue a report that said that Powell and the Fed's decision cost us a point of growth, which is a lot. Then in Biden's time, you were there.
Yep.
He never said anything about the irresponsible fiscal bills. He just accommodated that.
Okay.
And he raised rates way too early and unleashed the inflation. And now today he's making the same mistake.
Okay.
So this is not a guy who understands economics. He's a lawyer, and he needs to be reined in by his board. I think that's the bottom line.
Reined in by the board. Okay.
July 29th, 30th, that's the next meeting. Will they lower or not? There's got to be somebody on the Board of Governors who's going to take the lead to make the case.
So he was appointed, though, by President Trump. President Trump was the one who put him in the first term. And now the president's going to have a
Might have wanted that one back.
I think you guys want to redo on that one, right?
That was
Okay.
what I would fondly call Steve Mnuchin's folly.
So
Remember, yeah,
so
it was Mnuchin.
Mnuchin is the one who advocated for him.
Yes.
And the president, privately, I'm told, would always bring that up. Right, would always sort of make that known to Steve Mnuchin. I see your reaction, but I want to move.
But the thing about when Powell, see, he's a political animal. You have to understand. It's like when he was auditioning for that job, he led us all to believe that he was totally on the Trump train and understood the ability of Trump policies to grow the economy faster without creating inflation. And if you want to push back on that, please do. But we proved that we could do that. And so and then with Biden, he sucked up to Biden so he could get reappointed. And that was the root of the problem of him not raising rates fast enough when all this, it was a combination of demand pull inflation from the bad bills they were passing and supply shocks because they didn't, Buttigieg screwed up the supply chain.
All right, just some of my conversation there with Peter Navarro. It gives you a window into the thinking over there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as they wrestle with all of this right now. With me now, Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaigns, and Aaron McGuire is a Republican strategist. Hello to you both. Thanks for being here. Here's the thing, Aaron. If Donald Trump could have fired Jay Powell, he would not have made it to January 21st. It would have been one of the very first things that Donald Trump did. I said, and I brought this up to Peter, I said 6 months ago I thought Jay Powell was going to be one of the most famous people in politics. You don't have a lot of monetary policy experts in the United States of America, but a lot of people with opinions on Jay Powell, right? What does the White House do now? Because they can't get rid of him.
Yeah, they're going to keep up a public pressure campaign because that's what they can do, and they do have a bully pulpit to do so, right? They have clear disagreements at the White House with how Powell has handled interest rates regarding the economy. If you look at other nations, you can look at Japan or Switzerland or Canada, any number of nations that don't necessarily have the solid economic foundation of the United States, but are paying less on their debts with lower interest rates.
Interest rates going up, it vindicates Powell a little bit.
But for some, but not for all. And especially when they're, but for inflation. But if you look at this, overall, our economy is very strong and steady, and we're still paying more on our debt because of Powell. The White House is going to keep up the pressure campaign because they see this as so critical to the economic success.
Here's the thing. Like I said, you're not going to find many monetary policy experts, but you will find a lot of people with opinions on Jay Powell. If the White House, as what Aaron says, and she would know, just pounds this and pounds this and pounds this and pounds this nonstop, are they, Dan, going to be able to shape the narrative and get people thinking, oh, maybe the president's onto something here?
They'll try, and I do think the president wants a scapegoat, either for the lack of growth. You know, they promised this huge growth in the last tax cut and debt explosion they did in the first term, and it didn't really come. They want growth now, obviously. I think their projections are also wildly optimistic, as every economist worth their salt has said. But what I was struck by, Blake, and what I think the problem with the president's saber-rattling approach here, which I do not think will work with Powell, is that everything I heard from Peter Navarro seemed confused and conflicted. It was at one point praising Volcker for being willing as a Fed chair to drive us into recession to keep rates down.
But he says, look, we have the goods from the first term to prove all that wrong.
He says that, but I don't think they do have the goods. What we do know from the experience through COVID, and remember, a lot of that stimulus happened under Trump. People want to forget that, but it was Trump and that Congress before the Biden election in 2020 that did the bulk of the stimulus, then more happened. Yeah. But what came through at the end of all the Western economies in the world, there was no recession, there was a soft landing. Inflation did eventually come down from 6.6 to 2.5. And ultimately, that strong economy Aaron mentioned was gifted to Donald Trump. And now the real barrier to rates coming down is his own tariff policy.
I guess I would just say if it was that strong, you might be talking about President Harris.
Perhaps.
But that's a conversation for another day. We got to leave it there because I'm telling you, we could talk about this tomorrow, Friday.
We probably will.
And next week, we'll see what happens. Hang around, other side of the break, still to come here on the Hill. The former Democratic National Committee Vice Chair David Hogg. Did you see what he said today.
What's one thing you're hopeful for?
The fact that I'm going to outlive a lot of the people who are against me.
Okay.
What exactly does that mean? We're going to play for you the rest of the comments and basically what he described the Democratic Party to now. Full panel, other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So the activist and politician David Hogg had some pretty assertive ideas earlier today at the Hill Nation Summit regarding the Democratic Party. Watch.
It's a tough time to be a Democrat in Washington right now. What's one thing you're hopeful for?
The fact that I'm going to outlive a lot of the people who are against me.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the truth. And the other thing is, you know, honestly, I feel like a little bit DC right now with the number of older people that have just clung on to power for so long. It's not nearly as dramatic as this, but it feels a little bit like the end of the Soviet Union, where they are just there and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And there's going to be a massive power vacuum. Gen X has been waiting a long time. Millennials have been waiting a long time. The difference with Gen Z, I would say in some senses, and this is a broad kind of generalization, is we're mad as hell and we are not taking it anymore.
All right, speaking of the future of the Democratic Party, it all comes as Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic socialist who could be the next mayor of New York City, came to town today and seemed to sweep several Democrats off their feet.
Zohran Mamdani is an incredible talent.
So the overall impression on me was, this guy is not a communist. He's not a socialist. He's an advocate for small c capitalism.
I think he's going to be a great mayor of New York City.
Full panel here with me now. Dan Cannonen is back, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaign. Michael Schnell at the summit with us tonight. Congressional reporter for The Hill. Chris Steyerwalt, of course, host of The Hill Sunday. Senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. With us again, Aaron McGuire, Republican strategist. All right, guys, big day in politics. Thanks for being here. David Hogg and your party. You think in theory on the idea of the power vacuum, he's not off there, but you don't think that's the way to handle this?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'll laugh when you're dead is not really an invitation to join a party. No, there will be.
See you next Tuesday?
Yeah, honestly. I mean, can I make a point about where he was emotionally today? I think he just came off of the election last night in Arizona 7th.
Okay.
His PAC went all in for Deja Fox, a 25-year-old influencer. And Adelita Grijalva won that race going away. And the point I want to make about her is that Bernie Sanders endorsed her and Mark Kelly endorsed her. And that's the kind of invitation broad tent Democrats should be aspiring to. My problem with David Hogg is not that he wants new candidates, new energy, outsiders to come into the party. That's all great. It is that kind of attitude that we do not need.
Oh, David Hogg is just such a gift. I love him. Democrats, keep him up. Keep him at the front. Because this guy is deeply unserious, but he is the soul in the face of your party right now.
Oh, you don't actually. I know you want to push Hogg, but you don't believe that.
You're going to tell me he's not? Look at you guys. You guys put him on that stage today, but you're going to tell me he's not a face and a leader of the party?
But you said the soul and
absolutely.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They keep propping him up. They kicked him out of the party, and he's still getting headlines. Kids raised over $20 million and put $20 million in that race.
He's excellent at self-promotion. I'll give you that. But he lost big last night. He lost big to someone who could big the whole party together. That's a bigger deal.
And today, what's he doing? He's driving the headline, not that race, not him being excommunicated from the party. He's running the headline today for Democrats that I don't have a strategy. I don't have a way to unite us. I'm just going to wait for everybody to die because my ideas can't build consensus. That's what David said Democrats are doing.
The other story, Mamdani up on the Hill today. You saw the sound there from Democrats kind of fawning over him. What are you hearing from up on the Hill?
I would know that was a specific subset of Democrats.
Progressives.
Those were the progressives.
Right.
Jayapal is a former chair of the Progressive Caucus. The progressives is not where Mamdani's problem is. Those are where his strongest supporters are. His problem is with more centrists and moderates, with Jewish members of Congress, Jewish Democrats. They did a lot of reporting on that. There are still a lot of concerns about him not condemning the globalize the intifada phrase. There's still a lot of concerns about some of his proposals, free grocery stores, free busing, the democratic socialist ideas that these moderates and centrists are not on board with. So, sure, those were good comments from Mamdani, but again, that's not where he needs to build support.
Chris, and then I also see the headline in the Hill, Jill Biden work husband, Anthony Bernal, refuses to answer oversight questions. He pled the fifth today. It comes after Dr. Kevin O'Connor pled the fifth as well. There are questions about who knew what, when, about what. in the last Democratic administration. Where is the party tonight?
Well, look, I think the Republicans are having lots of fun torturing the Biden people, right?
Okay.
And they're going to do it, and they're going to keep doing it. Politically, I don't know how useful it is, and I think we should also be aware of the consequences for the next presidency. And the current presidency, when a Democrat eventually is in the Oval Office again, about this constant backward-looking thing, there are dangers to the Republic there when this becomes a self-licking ice cream cone. We're not doing anything to go ahead. We're only looking back. And it's fun for Republicans, but I don't think it particularly gets them anywhere. But I do think, to the point about what did Eric Adams call it, to globalize the infrattata, Zohran Mamdani is doing a really good job right now of outreach. He's going to talk to business groups. He's coming to Congress. He's smiling. He's staying positive. He's going out and doing it. His policies are wild, no doubt. Some of his policies are no doubt wild. But what he is doing is a great lesson in politics, and it's the opposite of what David Hogg is doing. Politics is about addition. It's not about division when it's done well.
Or if you're David Hogg's case, it's just waiting for all to die.
You two nodded along to everything that he said. Yeah. Why?
Yeah, I think Chris hit the nail on the head.
Besides Starwell's awesome. Hit the nail on the head.
Well, I mean, yes, we obviously all know that. I mean, I think that's right. I think that David Hogg is a division point in the Democrat Party, but I think that is who the Democrats are at this point. They are a deeply divided party, which is why someone like a David Hogg with effectively no experience, who has only been a talking head on TV, is now a leading face of the Democrat Party. Hey, I'm still working races. I'm still working races. I still got candidates on.
No, I'm talking about myself.
But his candidate did not win. And to your point, Chris, what Mamdani is doing, to me, my criticism of the Bernie movement sometimes, or even some of the David Hogg stuff, has never been about the left flank or right flank version of the policies. It's about the politics of inclusion and addition. In this country, no presidential candidate in the last election got to 50% of the vote. Donald Trump got a very, very strong plurality.
How do you find solid ground to stand on so that you can reach out to somebody else? Donald Trump took control of the Republican Party because he started with a third of the party and then added to it over time by bringing people from other parts of the party in. That's what works. You have to find a solid place to stand and then add to it.
And from outside the party as well. You saw Donald Trump make huge inroads within the last elections to see not only with black voters, but with younger voters. And even
with Kennedys.
I mean, with Kennedys, look at that. I mean,
I'll give you the last word here.
You know, I think that Chris said it properly. Mamdani is reaching out to people. Look, he doesn't have the full coalition right now. As I mentioned, there are a number of moderates, centrists, but he's reaching out to people. He's scheduled to meet with Chuck Schumer. He's going to be meeting with Hakeem Jeffries, two of the top Democrats on Capitol Hill, who very notably stopped short of endorsing him.
They're not there just
Democrats can run, but they can't hide from Mamdani.
But Mamdani is attacking it head on, and he's going to try to get the support. Will it be successful? We'll see. But the guy's trying.
I got to leave it there. I appreciate all of you. Lots of news made today. Thanks for being here. Thanks so much. All right, still to come. Other side of the break. For shoes, are liquids next? I talked with the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem today. My take on the other side of the break about why I think this exchange is so important. I'll explain. Other side. All right, so if you're just getting home tonight, here are some of the top stories that are trending on thehill.com. Of course, we start with the story that's not going away anytime soon. Laura Loomer, Epstein threatens to consume Trump presidency. The president talking about it earlier today. How about this? 20 states sue Trump administration over disaster prevention funding. I talked to Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, about FEMA. And then you're going to see a lot more of this. It's awful, but this is the future. Florida woman conned out of $15,000 after AI clones daughter's voice. Wow. To check out those stories and so much more, all you have to do is just scan the QR code on your screen or head on over to thehill.com. All right, time for my take now. At today's Hill Nation Summit, I interviewed the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Lasted about 20 minutes, and we covered everything from immigration to cyber terrorism to FEMA. But I decided to end the interview with a lighter topic, and I want you to listen to the audience reaction.
The other day, you announced, TSA announced, you actually said in the announcement, quote, that basically the shoes off policy at the airports, that we all go to the airport. Everybody's, wow, look at that. What does the future at the airports look like?
Well, hopefully the future of an airport, where I'm looking to go, is that you walk in the door with your carry-on suitcase, you walk through a scanner and go right to your flight.
Did you hear the applause there? A reaction to Noem and TSA recently announcing you can now keep your shoes on when you go through metal detectors at the airport. Now, her comments on your future airport experience have gotten pickup all over the place. For example, Noem said the next big announcement could involve rolling back those restrictions on the liquids we try to pack. Now, here's why I bring it up. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of policy in this town of all kinds. And somewhere between sometimes to fairly frequent, the talk in this town becomes very inside the Beltway. But that reaction there about simply your shoes at the airport is a really good reminder of how we work really hard not to fall into the inside the Beltway trap. So as you watch us here on the Hill, I hope you find that we ask the tough but fair questions, all while making you feel like you could sit back, relax, watch us, and just kick off your shoes. And in that case, it's a good thing. Telling you, I talk to a lot of these lawmakers, and they say it privately. What we are doing over here at NewsNation and the Hill, they're getting it. They're starting to see it. It's why they're coming on the show, and it's why so many of them were at that summit today. It was a fantastic event. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern. I'm Blake Burman. Elizabeth starts now.